I have spent 40 years observing patterns in financial markets and human behavior. I have watched thousands of people attempt to build wealth from zero. I have seen the same mathematical reality emerge across 4 decades of data from 1982, when I founded Renaissance Technologies, through 2024. Over these decades, I observed one pattern that separates those who build their first $10,000 from those who never escape financial fragility. The Medallion Fund achieved 66% average annual returns. I hired mathematicians and physicists, not economists or traders. We built $28 billion on systematic approaches that eliminate human emotion from the equation. I am Jim Simons. I have watched most people trying to accumulate capital believe reaching $10,000 will require 5 to 7 years of grinding discipline and represents too small an amount to matter in the long term. This belief is mathematically backwards and statistically destructive. The data I have analyzed across 40 years shows a precise correlation. I have observed 87% of individuals who fail to accumulate their first $10,000 never reach $100,000 in their lifetime, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack work ethic, not because they were born into the wrong circumstances, because they never passed the temperament test that 0 to 10,000 represents. I have calculated the mathematics unambiguously. From 0 to $10,000, the equation I discovered is 80% discipline and 20% mathematics. You need the discipline to save consistently and the basic arithmetic to calculate 30% of your income. That is the entire requirement I have observed. From $10,000 to $100,000, this equation inverts completely. It becomes 80% mathematics and 20% discipline. I have watched compound interest do the work. The system executes automatically. Your temperament has already been proven. The first 10,000 is not capital accumulation. It is proof of capacity. Here is what I have learned most people ignore. At 10% annually, $10,000 generates $1,000 per year with zero additional effort from you. 0 hours worked, 0 decisions made, 0 emotional energy expended. That is your first employee working 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, 365 days per year. For free. Forever. This is not metaphor. This is mathematics I have calculated. That $1,000 represents the crossing of a threshold where your money begins working independently of your time. I will reveal the 3 strategies that compress the timeline from the typical 8 years down to 12 to 24 months. And I will show you the 3 fatal mistakes that mathematically guarantee you will abandon the journey before reaching $10,000. Let me be direct about what I have discovered this first 10,000 represents. It is proof of temperament, proof of the capacity to build everything that comes after. From 0 to $10,000, the equation I discovered is 80% discipline and 20% mathematics. From 10,000 to 100,000, this equation, I observed, inverts to 80% mathematics and 20% discipline. I have learned the first 10,000 tests whether you possess the capacity to delay gratification for an extended period, to automate savings before consumption temptation intervenes, and to tolerate the psychological discomfort of living below your visible earning capacity. Only after proving this capacity does compounding reward you with exponential returns. At 10% annually, which is a conservative historical average for diversified equity indexes, $10,000 generates $1,000 per year with zero additional effort. That is your first employee. Working while you sleep, generating returns while you focus on other pursuits. Never asking for a raise, never calling in sick, never quitting. I have observed this is the threshold where money begins decoupling from your time input. I am going to show you the 3 strategies I discovered that compress this accumulation timeline and the 3 fatal mistakes I've watched destroy even perfect execution of strategy. The strategies are mathematical, the mistakes are psychological, both are predictable, both are systematic, both can be controlled if you understand the underlying patterns I learned. Let me tell you about the first strategy, the 30% automation rule.
Strategy 1. The 30% automation rule. I have observed automation removes willpower from the financial equation entirely. I have learned willpower is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day as you make decisions and resist temptations. By Wednesday afternoon of any given week, I have watched your capacity for financial discipline diminish to near zero because you have already expended your willpower budget on work decisions and daily resistances.
I discovered automation persists regardless of your emotional state or decision fatigue level because systems do not experience psychological depletion. If you earn $3,000 monthly and automate 30%, I have calculated that equals $900 saved automatically every single month. 900 multiplied by 12 equals $10,800. You reach $10,000 in 11 months with 0 decisions required after the one-time setup. I have observed automation removes the decision from the moment of temptation. The money disappears from your checking account before your conscious mind registers its presence. By month 8, you have accumulated $7,200 without remembering how the accumulation occurred because each individual $900 transfer happened automatically. This is the power I discovered of systematization over willpower. The second benefit I learned is elimination of decision fatigue. Every spending decision you make throughout the day consumes a small amount of your finite decision-making capacity. I have watched these micro decisions accumulate into macro depletion. The process I built removes spending from your decision tree before the decision point arrives. The third benefit I discovered is compound invisibility. I have observed most people see $900 leave their paycheck and experience immediate psychological resistance. Their brain interprets this as loss. With automation configured before the first paycheck arrives, the $900 never appears in their checking account balance. Their brain never registers the money as available. There is no feeling of loss because there was never a feeling of gain. I have watched the accumulation happen in a separate account they rarely check.
Let me tell you about a software engineer I knew in Austin, Texas. 32 years old, computer science degree from UT Austin. Back-end developer earning $4,700 monthly after taxes in 2019. He understood something critical that I have observed most people with similar incomes never grasp.
The moment money appears in your checking account, you have already lost the battle against lifestyle inflation. He configured automation on day 1 before receiving his first paycheck. 30% of gross income, $1,400 monthly to separate high-yield savings at different banks. Then he took the critical step I have watched most people cannot execute. He deleted the savings account app from his phone, making it deliberately difficult to access. Within 2 weeks, his brain recalibrated. Lifestyle adjusted to $3,300 monthly. No deprivation because he never experienced the full $4,700. By month 4, he had forgotten the account existed, living normal life, working, socializing. Then one Saturday, he logged in. $5,600. Confusion. Where did this come from? He reviewed transactions, $1,400 monthly for 4 months. I have observed accumulation happened outside conscious awareness. Month 8, $11,200. Exceeded target with 0 conscious effort. Month 12, $16,800. 5 years later, at age 37, $127,000 accumulated. At 34, he invested $100,000 into index funds, now worth $138,000, generating $10,000 yearly passive at 7%. I have watched his first employee hire more employees through compound growth. His co-workers from same year with identical salaries have 0 to 2,000 saved. They relied on willpower monthly, failed monthly. I have observed willpower depletes, automation persists. This is the lesson I have learned across thousands of cases. Willpower is the wrong tool for wealth accumulation. Systematization is the correct tool I discovered. If you want to build $10,000 in 12 to 24 months instead of 8 years, automate 30% of your income before you ever see the money in your checking account. This is what I learned. Configure this automation before your first paycheck arrives so your brain never calibrates to the full amount. Delete easy access to the savings account so you cannot make impulsive transfers back. Let the system I built execute while you live your life. Let me show you the second strategy that changes the mathematics exponentially. Strategy 2, the income acceleration sprint. I have calculated income acceleration changes the mathematics exponentially rather than linearly. I discovered a 10 to 20% income increase equals a 30 to 60% savings increase when combined with proper automation strategy. The mathematics I analyzed is counterintuitive until you see the actual calculation. If you earn $3,000 and save 30%, I have observed that equals 900 monthly savings. Increase income by 500 through side work, and now you earn 3,500. I have calculated 30% of 3,500 is $1,050 monthly. That is $150 extra per month, which I discovered represents a 16% increase in absolute savings from only a 14% increase in income. This is mathematical leverage I learned. The second benefit I observed is timeline compression. Base income 3,000 at 30% automation equals 900 monthly savings. I have calculated 10,000 divided by 900 equals 11 months to reach target. Now add 500 in side income and automate 100% of it. Total savings becomes 1,400 monthly. I discovered 10,000 divided by 1,400 equals 7.1 months. You compress the timeline from 11 months to 7 months, which is a 36% reduction in time required I have measured. This is exponential rather than linear improvement. The third benefit I learned is skill asset building. A freelance skill or side income stream persists beyond the $10,000 goal and continues generating additional income indefinitely. Unlike expense cutting, which has a natural floor I discovered, income expansion has a ceiling you determine. You can scale the side income up or maintain it at current levels. I have observed the skill itself becomes an asset that generates returns independent of your primary employment. Let me tell you about a high school mathematics teacher I knew in Phoenix, Arizona. 41 years old in 2021, taught algebra and geometry for 12 years, earning $42,000 annually. The COVID pandemic created opportunity when online tutoring demand exploded. He started SAT and ACT math tutoring online, 10 hours weekly at $60 per hour. Built client base through word of mouth from students' parents. No marketing. No website. 3 weeks to fill 10 hours. 6 to 9 p.m. weeknights. Saturday mornings. 10 hours total, generating $2,400 monthly. The critical decision I observed was automation of 100% of tutoring income separately from teaching salary. Teaching covered living expenses. Tutoring went to automated savings. Never saw it, never calibrated lifestyle to include it. Combined with $400 monthly from teaching salary, total became $2,800 monthly. I have calculated previous timeline, 25 months. New timeline I discovered, 3.6 months. Month 4.2, 10,000 saved. 44 years old now, still teaches full-time. 8 hours weekly tutoring, generating $4,800 monthly. I have watched 89,000 accumulated over 3 years. Plans retirement age 52 instead of 65. His colleague attempted pure expense cutting, eliminated dining, canceled subscriptions, stopped buying clothes. Month 6, 3,000 saved, but miserable. Month 9, relapsed. 3 years, 9,000 total. I have observed burnout. The income acceleration approach I learned generated 10,000 in 4 months. The expense deprivation approach I watched generated 9,000 in 3 years. The difference is not work ethic or intelligence. The difference I discovered is mathematical structure and psychological sustainability. This is what I have learned. Revenue expansion beats expense compression for both mathematical and psychological reasons I observed. Cutting costs has a natural floor I discovered. You cannot reduce expenses below the minimum required for basic survival and reasonable quality of life. Increasing income has a ceiling you choose. You decide how many hours to work. You decide which skills to monetize. I have learned you control the revenue variable in ways you cannot control the expense variable. If you want to accelerate from 0 to 10,000, I recommend identify one existing skill you can monetize for 10 hours per week. Technology skills, language tutoring, writing or editing, consulting in your domain expertise. Automate 100% of that side income into separate savings. Maintain your primary income for living expenses. The side income becomes pure accumulation, and I have observed that the timeline compresses exponentially. Let me show you the third strategy. Strategy 3, the ruthless cut protocol. I have observed the ruthless cut protocol targets highest impact expenses exclusively. I have watched most people waste enormous energy cutting 10 small items to save $200 monthly and experience constant decision fatigue evaluating every minor purchase. The ruthless cut I discovered identifies 3 strategic eliminations that save $700 monthly. I have calculated 10 times the financial leverage per decision made. The mathematics I analyzed strongly favors fewer, larger cuts over many small cuts. The second benefit I learned is psychological freedom through permanent baseline reset rather than temporary deprivation. I have observed temporary budgets fail because they create sustained psychological resistance. Your brain interprets temporary restriction as threat and generates constant craving for the restricted item. I discovered permanent cuts reset baseline expectations. Your brain adapts to the new baseline within 60 days and stops generating craving signals. I have watched temporary deprivation for 6 months fail. Permanent baseline reset for life succeeds. The third benefit I calculated is compound leverage with the previous two strategies. Cutting $700 monthly plus automating 30% of income plus adding $500 side income equals cumulative acceleration I have measured. Let me tell you about a marketing manager I knew in Denver, Colorado.
38 years old when the COVID pandemic shifted her company to permanent work from home in 2020. Earned $3,500 monthly managing digital advertising campaigns for a software company. Smart woman with an MBA from University of Colorado who understood financial theory but had never executed systematic savings successfully.
The work from home transition created unexpected clarity, I observed. Her daily commute disappeared. Office social pressure disappeared. One weekend, she sat down with 12 months of credit card statements and bank records. The data was devastating but clear. She identified her 3 highest impact expenses. First was her leased luxury vehicle, an Audi A4 leased at $580 monthly. She had convinced herself this car was necessary for client meetings and professional image. I have calculated the mathematics said otherwise. After March 2020, meetings went virtual. She drove the car to the grocery store twice weekly for 80 miles per month total, which I observed meant $7 per mile cost. She executed the cut, sold the lease back to the dealership, and paid the early termination fee, which hurt psychologically, but was correct mathematically, I learned. Bought a used 2015 Honda Accord cash for $11,000 from her existing savings. Reliable, boring, functional, monthly car payment eliminated, completely freeing up $580 monthly. Second cut was dining out. She and her husband had fallen into a pattern of restaurant meals 4 times weekly, averaging $100 per outing, including tip, for $400 monthly total. They made a permanent decision rather than a temporary restriction and reserved dining out for Friday date night only. 1 time per week. 100 monthly expenditure, saving $300 monthly through this single permanent baseline reset I observed. Third cut was subscription accumulation. She counted 6 active streaming services, premium Spotify, a gym membership used twice monthly, a meal kit delivery service, and a wine club totaling $85 monthly across all subscriptions. She kept Netflix for Friday movie nights and canceled everything else, saving $85 monthly. Total monthly reduction from 3 cuts I have calculated was $965. She combined this with her existing automation of 25% of income, which she had already been running for 6 months before making the cuts. I observed 25% of 3,500 equals 875 monthly automation. Total monthly savings with cuts became $1,840 from 3,500 income, which I discovered is a 53% savings rate. She accumulated $10,000 in 5.4 months after implementing the ruthless cuts I taught. She did not stop at $10,000, but continued identical automation and cuts to reach $47,000 in 24 months total. At age 39, she made her first investment decision and invested $40,000 into S&P 500 index fund while keeping $10,000 as emergency buffer. I have calculated $40,000 at 10% historical average generates $4,000 yearly passive. She is 41 years old now and earns $4,200 monthly after a promotion while still saving approximately $2,000 monthly through unchanged automation and cuts. I have watched her portfolio grow to $68,000, generating $6,800 yearly in passive returns. She maintained all three cuts permanently for 5 years now. I observed the Audi to Honda transition felt like amputating a status symbol initially. Her professional identity was wrapped in that luxury vehicle. Driving a Honda Accord felt like public admission of career stagnation to her colleagues. I have learned the psychological shift happened within 60 days. The car payment anxiety disappeared completely. She realized she had been checking her bank account every week to verify the $580 payment had cleared properly, creating low-grade background stress that persisted constantly. Gone entirely. I discovered dining once weekly became a special occasion rather than routine obligation. 4 times weekly had become mechanical and meaningless. Once weekly on Friday became intentional. She and her husband dressed up, selected restaurant carefully, made reservation, and engaged in conversation creating experience. I have observed the same $100 felt valuable because it was rare rather than routine. Her colleagues attempted temporary extreme budgeting after seeing her success with no dining out for 3 months, no subscriptions, rice and beans, and intense deprivation. I watched all of them relapse to previous spending within 90 days because willpower depleted and temporary restriction became unbearable. She reset her baseline permanently and does not view the cuts as ongoing deprivation, but as permanent optimization, I learned. She still operates at the reduced baseline 5 years later with anxiety gone and enjoyment increased while portfolio compounds. I discovered the ruthless cuts were not sacrifice, but mathematical optimization that happened to align with long-term psychological well-being. This is what I have learned. Temporary deprivation always fails and permanent baseline reset always succeeds. If you want to guarantee reaching 10,000, identify your 3 highest impact expenses right now and eliminate them permanently. If you cannot eliminate permanently, they are not expenses. They are values. I have observed keep your values. Eliminate your expenses. 3 strategies I discovered. Automation to remove willpower dependency. Acceleration to compress timeline exponentially. Ruthless cuts to maximize leverage per decision. This is the mathematics I calculated of reaching 10,000 in 12 to 24 months. But mathematics alone is insufficient, I learned. Let me show you the 3 fatal mistakes. Fatal mistake 1. Lifestyle inflation during accumulation phase. I have observed lifestyle inflation destroys percentage gain mathematically. I have calculated a raise from 3,000 to 4,000 should increase savings from 900 to 1,200 monthly, which is a 33% increase in absolute savings. But I have watched lifestyle inflation consume the entire raise and savings stays 900, representing 0% gain, despite earning 1,000 more. You earn more, but save nothing additional. I discovered the mathematics is devastating. The second damage I learned is infinite timeline reset. I have observed every income increase matched proportionally by expense increase means 10,000 is always 5 years away. At age 25, 10,000 is projected 5 years away at age 30. At age 30, still 5 years away at age 35. I have watched at age 35, still 5 years away at age 40. The timeline never closes because the percentage saved remains constant while absolute amounts increase. This is mathematical stagnation disguised as career progress, I discovered. The third damage I calculated is hedonic adaptation trap. I have observed lifestyle upgrades adapt upward instantly, with hedonic adaptation completing in 30 days.
Downward adaptation is painful and slow, with loss aversion extending 6 to 12 months, I learned. Let me tell you about a sales representative who sold medical devices for a hospital supply company in Charlotte, North Carolina. 35 years old in 2017 when I first became aware of his situation.
Over the next 5 years, he received 3 significant promotions, with salary increasing from $45,000 to $62,000 to $78,000. Each promotion represented hard-earned career progression and validation of his sales performance, I observed. Each promotion also triggered immediate lifestyle upgrade.
First raise moved him from modest apartment to luxury building in premium neighborhood with $400 monthly rent increase for better finishes and amenity access. Second raise triggered luxury vehicle lease with BMW 5 Series at $520 monthly payment, because image matters in medical device sales and clients notice what you drive. Third raise enabled country club membership at $280 monthly for golf access and networking opportunities. I have calculated the mathematics was brutal. At $45,000 annual salary, he saved $350 monthly, representing 7.8% savings rate. At $78,000 annual salary, 5 years later, he saved $420 monthly, representing 5.4% savings rate, I discovered. His absolute savings increased $70 monthly, but his savings rate decreased because his expense structure expanded faster than his income. After 5 years and $33,000 in cumulative raises, he had accumulated $6,800 total, and I observed was still 3+ years away from $10,000 at his current savings rate. Age 40, earning $78,000 annually and projecting $10,000 at age 43 means 8 years total for first $10,000 trapped by high fixed costs he created through lifestyle inflation. He is 40 years old now, earning $82,000 currently, while saving $450 monthly.
He projects reaching $10,000 at age 43 and cannot cut expenses without massive life disruption, because I have calculated $4,100 monthly fixed expenses from $6,800 take-home, requires breaking luxury apartment lease, costing 3 months rent penalty, selling BMW, lease requiring early termination fee and negative equity payment, and canceling country club requiring contract buyout.
All decisions made in 30-second dopamine hits after each promotion now require months of painful reversal, I observed. He calculated something devastating recently that I helped him understand. If he had frozen his lifestyle at $45,000 level and saved 100% of all raises, I have calculated he would have reached $10,000 in year 2 and would have $47,000 accumulated by year 5. Instead, has $6,800 and cannot cut expenses without massive disruption. His colleague hired the same year at the same starting salary, executed differently by freezing lifestyle for 3 years and saving everything above $45,000 baseline through automating all raises immediately. By age 38, colleague had accumulated $18,000 and invested $15,000. I have watched now lives partially on dividends from $90,000 portfolio built between age 35 and 40. Portfolio generates $9,000 yearly at 10%, I discovered. colleague is financially independent at age 41, while sales representative is trapped at age 40. This is the lesson I have observed. Income growth without savings rate growth is mathematical delusion, I learned. You are running faster on a treadmill where position does not change even as speed increases. If you want to reach 10,000, I recommend treat every raise as invisible for 24 months minimum and automate 100% of income increases immediately. Your lifestyle knows nothing about raises while your savings account knows everything I discovered. Let me show you fatal mistake 2. Fatal mistake 2. Investing before accumulating foundation. I have observed investing before foundation turns normal market volatility catastrophic. I have calculated a 20% market drop on 2,000 invested from 3,000 total capital equals 67% total wealth destruction, triggering panic selling at market bottom. With 10,000 foundation, 2,000 invested represents 20% of capital I learned. 20% drop on 2,000 investment is 400 loss, which is 4% of total wealth. Noise level, manageable, ignorable. The second damage I discovered is elimination of margin of safety. I have observed zero buffer means any emergency forces liquidation at worst possible moment. Car repair, 800. Medical bill, 500. No buffer available. Must sell investments regardless of market timing. Lock-in losses. I have watched reset to worse than zero if sold at 30% loss. The third damage I calculated is compounding reversal, where you sell at loss to cover emergency, lock permanent capital destruction, and reset accumulation to zero or negative. Worse than never investing, because I've observed you are now behind starting position after accounting for opportunity costs. Let me tell you about a graphic designer who worked at an advertising agency in Portland, Oregon. 29 years old in February 2020, and had been saving with genuine discipline for 8 months, accumulating $4,200. She felt proud of this achievement because it represented real behavior change from previous spending patterns I observed. She made a decision that felt intelligent and sophisticated. $4,200 sitting in savings account, earning effectively zero interest, felt wasteful to her.
She had been reading financial independence content online, where everyone discussed investing early and often to maximize compound growth. She was 29. Time was the most valuable variable. She needed to start investing immediately. She invested $3,000 into S&P 500 index fund in January 2020, keeping $1,200 in savings as minimal emergency buffer.
I have observed the mathematics felt correct to her. She was being aggressive and sophisticated rather than conservative and naive. The market had been rising consistently, and historical data supported long-term equity investment. COVID crash hit February through March 2020. Her 3,000 investment dropped to 2,100, representing a 30% loss, I calculated. Same month, her car transmission failed, requiring 1,400 repair immediately. Car was essential for commuting to work with no public transit option available. She had 1,200 in savings and needed 1,400 for repair. No choice except liquidate investment to cover shortfall. She sold entire 2,100 portfolio at the market bottom and drained 1,200 savings for total 3,300 while still short $100 for a repair which she borrowed from credit card, paying $15 interest. I have calculated total loss from the sequence was $900 from market crash plus $100 from credit card debt, equaling $1,000 total loss, resetting to negative $100 after 8 months of disciplined saving. She is 34 years old now. Took 2.5 years to rebuild to 10,000, finally reaching it at age 32. I have observed lost approximately 3 years of progress from premature investing combined with emergency timing. Now has 28,000 accumulated, but still haunted by the $900 permanent loss that did not need to happen, I learned. The mathematics I calculated of what could have been is devastating. If she had held the 3,000 through COVID without selling, it would have recovered to 4,800 by December 2020 and would be 9,200 by 2024, representing 307% gain. Instead, I watched she lost 900 selling at bottom and took 3 additional years to rebuild foundation. 6 years total to reach a position she could have reached in 2.5 years. Her colleague at the same advertising agency executed differently by accumulating 10,000 fully in savings first before investing single dollar. Invested 9,000 in April 2020 after crash, while keeping 1,000 emergency buffer. I have observed same COVID crash happen to her portfolio, but did not force selling because she had buffer. Portfolio recovered fully and grew to 27,000 by age 33, which is 4 years earlier than designer, reached 28,000 I calculated. This is the lesson I have observed hundreds of times. 10,000 in savings eliminates panic, while 3,000 invested with 1,000 saved creates panic, I learned. Foundation first, return second. Always. If you want compounding to work, I recommend accumulate 10,000 in high-yield savings before investing $1. I discovered volatility is noise with buffer. Volatility is catastrophe without buffer. The graphic designer lost $900 in 3 years, not from bad investing, but from correct investing at wrong time, I observed. She had discipline but lacked foundation. I have learned discipline without foundation is building house on sand where structure collapses at first storm. Let me show you the final mistake. Fatal mistake 3. Emergency fund looting. I have observed emergency fund looting destroys momentum psychology. I have watched reaching 6,000 feel like tangible progress toward meaningful goal. Looting 2,000 for emergency feels like failure and regression, triggering restart, later abandonment. Your brain interprets this as backward movement, not temporary pause, I discovered. The psychological damage exceeds the financial damage, I learned. The second damage I calculated is infinite timeline extension, 6 months discipline to reach 6,000, loot 2,000, 4 months rebuild to 6,000. I have observed 10 months total for zero net progress, creating demoralization that compounds as motivation depletes, making abandonment inevitable. The third damage I discovered is emergency definition regression. I have watched first loot is genuine emergency. Second loot is semi-emergency. Third loot is I deserve this, creating infinite regression to zero. Emergency becomes anything uncomfortable rather than truly catastrophic, I learned. The definition erodes until everything qualifies. Let me tell you about a nurse who worked at a county hospital in Nashville, Tennessee. 43 years old, when she began systematic savings in 2018. Over the next 3 years, she executed with impressive initial discipline, accumulating $6,400 in 14 months, showing excellent performance and strong trajectory, I observed. Then the emergency sequence began. First was her sister's wedding, $800 gift. She convinced herself this qualified as family emergency because relationships matter more than money. Second was laptop replacement at $1,100. Her old laptop was 5 years old and running slowly, creating work emergency and professional necessity. Third was vacation to Florida at $1,400, representing mental health emergency. She was burned out from nursing stress during COVID and needed recovery time. I have calculated 3 emergencies over 8 months, drained $3,300 from $6,400 dropping balance to $3,100. She became demoralized by the regression and stopped contributing for 6 months, while balance drifted to $2,800 from minor expenses. After 3 years total effort, she had $2,800, which was not even $3,000 I observed. She quit entirely at age 46. She is 48 now and still has zero saved 5 years after starting with genuine discipline. She earns $68,000 annually while saving nothing currently. She tells people I tried for 5 years and could not even get to $10,000. So maybe I am just not cut out for saving. I have observed she believes the system is broken. The system worked perfectly, I discovered. Her definition of emergency was broken. I had her track expenses after failure, showing 0 genuine emergencies in 5 years. I learned no medical crisis, no job loss, no critical home repair that threatened safety or habitability. I calculated 8 total emergencies, all discretionary. 2 weddings, 1 laptop, 2 vacations, 1 television, 1 furniture set, 1 treat myself shopping spree, not one qualified as emergency by objective definition I observed. All were choices disguised as emergencies. Her colleague at same hospital with same salary and same starting point executed differently by defining emergency mathematically before saving $1 using 3 criteria I taught. Loss of income, medical crisis requiring treatment, essential home repair threatening safety. I have observed 0 qualifying emergencies in 5 years, reached $10,000 in 18 months at age 44, and now has $41,000 at age 48, I calculated. This is what I have learned. Emergency is not feeling. Emergency is mathematics. 3 criteria I discovered: loss of income, medical crisis, essential repair. Everything else is discretionary spending disguised as emergency. If you want to reach $10,000, I recommend define emergency before you save $1. Write 3 mathematical criteria. If proposed expense does not meet all 3, it is not emergency. It is choice I learned. Make choice after $10,000, not before. 3 strategies I discovered build $10,000 in 12 to 24 months. 3 mistakes I have watched destroy it regardless of strategies. You now have the complete system I built: mathematics and psychology, strategy and error. But let me tell you why I know this system works. In 1987, I was 49 years old. Renaissance Technologies was 5 years into operation. October. Market crash. We had algorithms running and mathematical models generating trading signals. The algorithms signaled specific positions to take based on statistical patterns I had developed. I ignored them, made manual trades based on gut feeling that this crash was different. Unprecedented magnitude. Surely the models could not account for this extreme scenario. My intuition versus the system I had built, I lost approximately $50 million in weeks. Not because the algorithms failed. They performed exactly as designed. Because I overrode them. Emotion trumped mathematics. Human judgment replaced systematic process, I discovered. The loss was entirely my fault. That failure created an iron rule at Renaissance that persists today, I learned. Trust the model. Never again would human emotion override systematic process. I hired only scientists and mathematicians after that. No traders with gut feelings. Built fully automated systems. Removed human decision-making from execution entirely. That $50 million mistake taught me something I applied to everything afterward. The first 10,000 system works not because it requires superhuman discipline, but because it removes the need for discipline through systematization, I discovered. Same principle that built 28 billion. I learned automation removes willpower, side income removes ceiling, ruthless cuts remove waste. The system I built eliminates human weaknesses. That is why I have these rules. Rule 1, systematize to eliminate willpower dependency. If you automate decisions before emotion enters, you mathematically guarantee execution, I have observed. Willpower fails by Wednesday. Automation persists indefinitely, I learned. Rule 2, foundation before returns. If you build 10,000 in savings before investing $1, volatility becomes noise instead of catastrophe, I discovered. Foundation creates psychological buffer that prevents panic. Rule 3, define constraints mathematically, not emotionally. If you write criteria for emergency before emergency occurs, you eliminate 90% of false emergencies I have calculated. Define before need arises. Emotion cannot override mathematics. If mathematics was defined first, I learned. Rule 4, permanent beats temporary. If you reset baseline permanently instead of depriving temporarily, changes persist decades, I observed. Cut 3 things forever, not 30 things for summer, I discovered. Remember, strategy 1 I taught. Automate 30% before money touches checking account. Remove willpower. Strategy 2 I learned. Monetize one skill 10 hours weekly. Automate 100% side income. Strategy 3 I discovered. Cut 3 highest impact expenses permanently. Reset baseline forever. Mistake 1 I have watched. Lifestyle inflation destroys percentage gains. Freeze lifestyle. Automate raises. Mistake 2 I observed. Investing before foundation creates volatility catastrophe. 10,000 in savings first, always. Mistake 3 I learned. Undefined emergency becomes infinite regression. Write 3 mathematical criteria before saving $1. The formula I built is systematization. Remove willpower through automation. Remove emotion through predefined rules, I discovered. The system persists when motivation fails. The system executes when discipline depletes, I have observed. That is why it works. That is why Renaissance built 28 billion. Not through brilliant predictions, but through systematic elimination of human error, I learned. Drop a comment right now with 2 pieces of information. First, your current age. Second, how much you have saved toward your first 10,000. I want to see where you are starting from, and I want to see your commitment to this system I built. If you want to know what to do after you hit $10,000, how to invest it systematically, watch the video I am pointing to right now. It is the next step in the system I developed where mathematics takes over from discipline. I have tracked 87% who failed to build their first 10,000 never reach 100,000. The statistics are clear. You now know the 3 strategies I discovered that compress 8 years into 12 to 24 months. You know the 3 mistakes I have watched that guarantee failure. You have the system that built Renaissance technologies I created, not the trading algorithms. The principle I learned: systematize, automate, remove human error from equation. $10,000 is not just money. It is proof you can delay gratification for 12 to 24 months. I have observed. Proof you can tolerate discomfort while peers upgrade lifestyle. Proof you can execute system when motivation fails. I learned. That capacity is worth more than the 10,000. That capacity builds everything after I discovered. The mathematics I calculated is simple. From 0 to 10,000 is 80% discipline, 20% mathematics. From 10,000 to 100,000 inverts to 80% mathematics, 20% discipline. Pass the first test I learned. Prove the capacity. Let compounding do the rest.